Welcome to my Christian EarthBound channel. Yup, bet you didn't see that one coming, huh? Mother this whole time has actually been short for Mother Mary. The Mother series has many allusions to world religions across its entries, and despite what many may think the games say about religion with moments like the Happy Happiest cult, they aren't trying to characterize it as all around evil or anything. Happy Happyism, for example, is a much clearer critique of organized religion than it is of religion as a whole, amongst other things. It's certainly making a statement about how religion can and has been used to manipulate people into doing others' bidding or carrying out bad actions, but the claim the Mother series is anti-religion, which I have seen made, is just unfounded. The most obvious objection to this is the role prayer plays in the game's story, when during the Gygas battle, Paula must pray 7 times to defeat her. Other than the explicit use of prayer to defeat a cosmic demon, the number 7 is also an important figure in both Christianity and Judaism, understood as communicating a sense of something being completed. How fitting that the 7th time beats Gygas, and that there are 7 sanctuary locations, because it wouldn't be a JRPG without killing a god. This scene is also slightly altered in the American release, as in the original Mother 2, during her first prayer, Paula explicitly calls out for God to help them, saying, "Please God, if you're there, please God, if you're real." This line, however, was altered in the American release by godless Nintendo. Something else interesting about this scene is that some interpret its meaning differently depending on if you're playing the English or Japanese version. I've seen interpretations that say since ultimately the player prays for their safety in the end, that the Japanese version is implying the player themselves is God, suggesting a sense of control over one's own life and the such, while the English version omits this entirely, but I beg to differ. Earlier in the game, Paula's mom says Paula has a guardian angel, which is what I personally see the player taking the role of, being omnipotent over them and guiding them throughout the adventure. I don't want to get too heavy into that right now though, as I'd like to save this topic for a future video. And angels themselves are also a real rabbit hole to delve into. Angelology and demonology are both super interesting and damn, biblically accurate angels, man. No wonder they're always saying, "Be not afraid." Wait, is this what I look like to them? Is this why they don't talk to me? Perhaps a less obvious allusion to Christianity, however, is of Ness as a Christ figure. The term Christ figure originates from literature and refers to a character in the story who is a central figure or symbol of good, who ends up being sacrificed. Though Ness does go through all these things, I'd like to slightly diverge from this definition. The life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, as described in the Bible, is likely the most widely known and likewise most influential story ever told. I mean, the Bible is the most widely spread book throughout the entire world. It's the best-selling one, and even the most stolen one. Point being, it's kind of a big deal. And due to this, the major beats from it, the canon events, have inspired storytellers for thousands of years. The hero's journey, the most common storytelling formula, even takes much from it, and overall, EarthBound's story structure is really a mix of these two things. Understanding this, it's easy to see Ness as the story's Jesus figure. He must fulfill a prophecy of defeating an evil supernatural being, and travels from place to place spreading peace and love throughout before defeating evil. Now, some may say Ness's methods aren't as peaceful as I'm making them out to be, but what many don't seem to know is Jesus wasn't the hippy-dippy, make love not war guy he's been sorta Santa Claused up to be. He meant business and didn't stand for violence or disrespect for God. Though we're reaching into pure interpretation here, it's also worth noting Ness's lack of a physically present father figure who is still very supportive of him is somewhat reminiscent of Jesus' father. The Father. Being separate from him in heaven. On his travels, Ness meets others destined to help him along the way, and they join him on his journey of saving the world, much like Jesus' acquisition of disciples throughout his ministry. Ness also on more than one occasion feeds the hungry and heals people, more so in a moral or mental sense than a physical one, effectively performing miracles. Though more interpretation, the fact that coil snakes are likely the first enemy you'll encounter on your adventure, as well as preceding many areas, could be an allusion to the serpent in the Garden of Eden, as the world's first enemy. I talk about this kind of thing more in my EarthBound analysis documentary series, so if you'd like to hear more about stuff like this, I'd recommend checking that out. An explicit biblical reference that was even kept in the English version is the Sea of Eden, a clear allusion to the Garden of Eden from Genesis, and it even has the Kraken enemies in it, who are clearly Leviathans also from the Bible. Though never described exactly what it is, the Apple of Enlightenment is likely a reference to how the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil is often depicted as an apple, which in researching for this video I've actually found out is because the Latin word for evil and apple are actually the same, malum. So yes, one of the most common interpretations of something from the Bible is a pun. Also, the Apple of Enlightenment also acts as a sort of Bible in itself, as whatever it is, it apparently foretold of the prophecy that Ness would ultimately defeat Gygas, again similar to many stories and prophecies told of Jesus Christ, as well as being similar to the story and destiny of Michael the Archangel, the angel who's actually definitively destined to be the one who actually defeats Lucifer at the end of time. The Cave of the Past is also interesting, as the Bible describes that after Jesus died on the cross, he descended into the earth, and although they may go back in time, they're too also being brought to a completely different realm, and more closely to the story of Jesus, ultimately die and then are resurrected by a seemingly supernatural force. A recurring element throughout the story is the Mani Mani statue, a golden figure that spreads evil to wherever it's brought. A notable visual element of it is its horns, which I extrapolate are an allusion to the gold calf from Exodus, which is built and worshipped by the disgruntled followers of Moses who are waiting while he's ascended up Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments from God. Also note that it's also discovered deep underground, almost like it's been dug up out of hell. Ness encounters this thing several times throughout his adventure, ultimately defeating it in Foresight. He does, however, encounter it again in the Sea of Eden as Ness's nightmare, and its placement at the penultimate point of Magicant is likely to parallel how the Tree of Knowledge was at the center of the Garden of Eden. Also, in terms of parallels to Jesus, Ness, by defeating his nightmare, overcomes evil, as Jesus overcame temptation while on Earth. Though it's embedded in the theming of EarthBound, religion also plays roles in the other Mother games, though to a much less of an extent. In the original Mother game, it's much less prominent thematically, with it primarily remaining in the visuals of the church Anna and her dad are at, and as tombstones, Japan only. These were changed to just stained glass windows and generic, though still somewhat angelic headstones for beginnings. Conversely, cross headstones were a-okay in some parts of EarthBound. You won't find them in Threed, but you'll find one for Buzz as well as each dead flying man in Magicant. The red crosses present on the hospitals in the Japanese version were actually removed due to copyright reasons and had nothing to do with religious purposes. Anna from Mother 1 is also just straight up a Christian, with the Mother Encyclopedia stating one of her favorite things is the Bible, specifically the New International Version, which has a weird cover by the way. And also she brings new meaning to PK. She's a pastor's kid, and her dad's the pastor of this church, though all mention is removed in the English version, along with the church itself being repurposed to a chateau. So why even bother keeping all of this church stuff in it? Well, I'm convinced. Mother 3, on the other hand, strays in another direction, with the religion of Tazmily focusing on these black and white dragons, which form a type of yin-yang symbol. The traditional yin-yang is most closely affiliated with Taoism, also known as Taoism, which actually consists of two serpents. While not a specific religion and more of a philosophical system, Taoism acts as a central building block in numerous Eastern religions. Taoism, in its most basic components, holds that humans and animals should try to maintain balance with the universe, known as Tao. And seeing as Mother 3 takes place in a very different era than Mother 1 and Mother 2, this shift makes sense and is kept really vague intentionally, to keep the focus on the characters. The core beliefs of Taoism also more closely align with the environmentalist messages and dissection of good and evil parallels between characters the story's trying to deliver. I mean, Lucas and Klaus are twins, for heaven's sake. There are plenty more religious allusions to take away from the series as well, like the Buddhist Hinduistic references and Dalam and such, but this was just a focus on the more prominent ones. It's just interesting to me that now it seems like Nintendo has not only slowed the roll on this, but almost completely flipped. Nintendo, this is not the goddess Hylia, that's just Mary. It's like I'm in Peru. One game they're removing the Bible, the next you're literally praying to become stronger. From good lord to good lord. Anyway, thanks for watching, and don't forget...